if you are smart, you can actually just enter the expressions in one go and keep pressing equal to get the next iterations. That saves a hell of a lot of time. I think I must have done 8 to 10 iterations of the entire notes in my 3-year journey so far. What is needed is a bit of a curiosity, a bit of an intuition for maths, and if you have that, you can do well. Hi everyone, this is Utkarsh Kumar, rank 55 in UPSC CSE 2020, and a major reason behind my good rank is the maths optional. I want to put down my scores here. This score here seems to be the highest in maths this year and quite likely across all of the optionals, and this gave me the edge. So in this video I am going to discuss 1. Maths as an optional, 2. My journey and my strategy throughout of it, and how you can target something similar in your preparation attempt. So firstly, what is maths as an optional like? For those of you who have a bit of a maths background, who have some sort of intuition for maths, for them maths can be a very interesting journey. There's a lot of syllabus to cover, but at the same time it's very interesting. It provides a break from the otherwise monotonous GS. It's also very scoring. In the recent years we have seen maths go as high as 361, 343, and even this year 322 when the optionals have been on the decline, relatively speaking. So these are the positives of maths. There is also the fact that year on year you can definitely expect an improvement because the syllabus is limited and it is static. So the same content is covered every year, and with practice it should definitely improve. When we come to the negatives of maths, it's one of the longer curriculums which often takes 9 to 10 months for the first iteration. There's also somewhat binary marking in the sense that if you do not know what to write in the question, you cannot guess, you cannot bluff there. While in the humanities subjects, even if you do not know anything, you can at least put pen on paper and write a few words. So in that sense, it could be a little bit of a high risk, high reward. But yet, those who have a knack for it, those who understand it a little bit, I think it's a no-brainer at this point. To the point that I want to link this to the Japanese chef knives. Those knives are quite sharp. So sharp that they make a very efficient tool and are very expensive in the market. But if you are not very clear with how to deal with them, you could end up cutting yourself. So think once, but this is an option that can really be a game changer in the UPSC CSE preparation. So moving on, who should take this optional? Anybody who has a bit of a background. If you have studied this in class 11th and 12th, that is fine. If you have studied in college, even that is good. If you have had a few courses in college, say linear algebra, ordinary differential equations, numerical analysis, all of these are good things, but these are not necessary. Even if you have studied it only till 12th, that is absolutely fine. What is needed is a bit of a curiosity, a bit of an intuition for maths, and if you have that, you can do well. I want to also touch upon the aspect that even people from outside IITs and NITs, they can do quite well here. I specifically want to mention Nitesh Hebbar sir, who a few years back had a very good rank with maths optional, and even this year Vinayak Narwade, rank 37 I think. He's from COEP Pune, not an IIT and not an NIT. So as long as you have that interest, as long as you have that intuition, you can hope to do very well in maths. So that is the beginning. Another question I often see is, do we need a coaching for maths? Again, the answer varies here. Because for people who have some sort of intuition, people who understand maths well, who maybe have some background, for them covering the notes themselves can be quite enough. For those who do not have a background, who are not sure if they will be able to learn by themselves, do not have that confidence, and want that the teaching methodology for learning, they can consider joining a coaching. There are a few good coachings around, notably IMS. Further, apart from this, a coaching can also give you 1 or 2 students who learn with you, compete with you, help you out, keep you motivated. So these are all reasons for joining a coaching. However, that said, if you are comfortable, please go ahead and cover the notes yourself. You will save yourself a lot of time and could be the game changer in your journey. Let's move on to the book list. I primarily and almost completely relied on the IMS notes. These notes are quite comprehensive and quite precise only for the preparation. So, if we cover these notes a few times, that should be enough for the exam perspective. I could even say that if you do the notes properly, you can hope to solve 70 to 80% of the UPSC maths paper. In fact, let's move on to a timeline here. For those who are doing it for the first time, for those who are going to take the first attempt, a first iteration of maths should ideally be done by January or by mid of February. That will also give enough time to put in one and a half revisions before the prelims come in around May to June. So that's a timeline that can be adhered to. Apart from this, the GS can be taken along side by side. What's important is to have the test series ongoing between prelims and mains. The idea here is to get that chronology right, that by prelims the syllabus is covered mostly. You can maybe have some physics topics left for later, but the bulk of the topics are covered. You are in exam preparation, and after prelims you can focus completely on test writing and practicing. For me, that was the difference between my first attempt and second attempt. In my first attempt, I could not balance between GS and maths, something I'll come to in just a bit. In my first attempt, I could not balance between GS and maths, and I ended up doing injustice with GS. That came back to haunt me. Even as I had a 303 in maths, my GS was 331. From that ditch, I don't think anything can pull you out. So I was not pulled out. I missed the list by 15 marks. In the second attempt, I had the chronology slightly better. My interview had happened in March 2020, and there was a lockdown that came in. In that way, it was a blessing for me, because then by the time prelims came in October 2020, my maths was completely ready, which meant that between prelims and mains, I could focus completely on practicing and give the rest of my time for GS only. I want to emphasize this by mentioning my daily routine at the point. Between prelims and mains, invariably, I would start my day with half of a test of maths. I would pick up a past test series from IMS itself. I would solve those 4 questions in 1 hour 30, 1 hour 45 minutes. Based on that, I would look at what things I need to revise again, which I have forgotten. But that was it from my side for that time. Once I had done that, this entire process used to take me 2 hours 15, maybe 2 hours 30 minutes. I would do the newspaper. All of this would be wrapped up by 12:30. I would go have my lunch, and I would have the rest of the day free for general studies. So I focused on my afternoon shift and my night shift completely on general studies. This was possible because maths had been done beforehand. So my one very important advice to all maths aspirants is to get the timeline right, get the maths syllabus covered well before prelims, so that after prelims you can focus on practice and the rest of your time on GS. That balance becomes very important, especially for us maths aspirants, because the maths syllabus is that long. It takes that long to study, to revise and so on. So moving on, another question I often see is how to study and revise maths. Let's start by mentioning this. This is different from our 11th-12th maths, when the focus was on understanding and visualizing more. Here there will be aspects that we have to memorize. Be it the simplex method, be it the reduction of a standard 2-degree equation into a standard conic, be it the different tests we have for convergence of sequences, series, etc. All of these are things that we will memorize. Similarly, the Serre-Frenet formula. So there are these components that need to be memorized, but the rest of it, to the extent possible, we should try to visualize it, we should try to understand it. When we do that, we will have to remember less and less. And the less we remember, the easier we recall. That will help in the exam process. Again, I did not make short notes out of the IMS notes because I thought they were quite concise. Some people do. I think Kanishka Kataria sir's short notes are available online. You can probably find them on Telegram groups, etc. But I didn't really feel the need for it. What I did instead was create formula sheets for both paper 1 and paper 2, where I would have only the important formulae listed, important concepts and algorithms listed. I would even put the proofs, etc. there, but I would put them in white font so that they would not be visible normally, as I revised, I could look at the proofs only for those theorems where I am getting stuck. So that was a user technology that I think others can also look up to. Another thing I did was make a starred problems sheet where I would jot down the problems that I got stuck in either while studying or while revising or in the test series. So those problems used to be there, and along with the problem I used to put the hint or the solution in white font so that it would not be visible normally. I would again, as it is probably evident by this, I used to keep these notes on Google Docs on the Google Drive, and so it was easy for me to add to it and put it in white font and black font and as per my convenience. So these three are my short collections from my preparation journey so far. So that is studying, that is also the revision part. I want to emphasize here again, when revising I used to solve the notes end to end completely. I would not physically write down every step, but I would write enough to develop that confidence that if I see this question in the exam, I will definitely be able to solve it. That is the stage that you want to reach. Another thing I want to mention here is the iterative approach. For an optional as vast as maths, covering everything in the first go can seem a little daunting. It can seem a little Herculean task. So it's a better idea to cover all of the essentials first. This could be the area covered in the first iteration, and with each iteration try to strengthen this with more revisions and cover a little bit more. So with each iteration try to widen your ambit of understanding, try to understand and do the proofs for more theorems. So that way you will develop the confidence over multiple iterations. I think I must have done 8 to 10 iterations of the entire notes in my 3-year journey so far. So that's something I think that is worth mentioning. Moving on to the practicing phase or the exam phase, mock tests are almost a given in maths. They are very important. They are important to get the hesitance out of our brain. They are important to get the confidence and simulate the exam mindset. And the more you practice in maths, the better it gets. The good thing for maths is that you have to write far less than a GS paper or a humanities paper, which means that even if you write a 3-hour paper, you are maybe not as exhausted as a GS paper. It's a good breather in that sense. What is important is to time the paper right. I used to target 30 minutes for every question. As you are aware, you have to solve 5 questions in total. So 5 questions into 30 minutes used to be 2 hours 30 minutes. That's something I used to target. There would be times I would get by it, but that's where I drew the line. There would of course be questions that I was not able to solve in the 2.5 hours. There would be mistakes that I made. The rest half an hour was dedicated fully to revising, to identifying calculation mistakes, to identifying silly mistakes, strategy mistakes, and fixing them. Because normally, and based on my discussion with other aspirants and friends as well, we typically commit at least 3 to 4 mistakes in one paper if we do not revise. Those 3-4 mistakes can easily be 20 marks, 22 marks, which is as good as solving 2 new questions. So I preferred revising and fixing those mistakes over solving 1 or 2 new questions, and that helped me in the exam as well. I am quite proud, quite happy to tell you that I did not make a single calculation mistake in the exam papers this time. That was because I consciously took those efforts. I cultivated the habit of revision in my mock tests throughout the journey. Apart from that, I want to also mention the exam mindset. It's something I think that applies to GS as well, but for maths it's even more critical. When I used to start a mock test, I would take 2 minutes break before starting that. I would take those 2 minutes to slow down my breathing, to become a more focused, a more zen version of myself, and get into that mindset of positivity that ultimately matters. Because in maths, getting that question right, thinking of the right approach becomes very important, even more compared to GS. So those mental management, emotional management can really add an extra 10-15 marks if done well. I want to also touch upon the uses of calculator. A good scientific calculator is a must. I used FX 991 ES. You can use any other calculator you want as long as it is scientific. These are most useful in the numerical analysis questions. especially for Newton-Raphson, for Gauss-Seidel iterations. There, if you are smart, you can actually just enter the expressions in one go and keep pressing equal to get the next iterations. That saves a hell of a lot of time. So it's almost a given that you have to carry a calculator and know how to use it well. Apart from that, if I'm speaking topic wise, nearly all topics are very important, especially the core maths topics are very important. However, it's fine to have one or two areas of weaknesses. Be very conscious, be very aware that it's one, at most two. I knew that I was not very comfortable with generators in analytic geometry. I was comfortable enough to get the 10 markers right, but not enough to get the 15-20 markers right. So I knew that paper 1, I think it's question 3 or question 4, one of them, will be skipped by me. I would not exercise a choice there. Similarly, in paper 2, I feel fluid mechanics, it really offers a very low return on our investment on our time. So based on the previous year questions, I created a sheet of 10 to 11 formulae that is enough to get all of the 10 markers right in the exam, even as I skip the 15 and 20 markers. That is again my strategy, and I knew I was not going to solve question number 8 of paper 2. So if you have weaknesses, identify them, be very aware of them, and be prepared to skip those questions. But ensure that it's maybe one question per paper, not more than that. Otherwise, you could end up getting stuck if a difficult question comes from your areas of comfort. We have seen theorems come from linear algebra which can throw this strategy haywire. I also want to mention modern algebra separately. While the rest of the topics are based on theorem applications, modern is extremely dependent on theorems and their proofs. So practice the theorems even more here. Try to get as many theorems proofs as possible. Even the last ones on rings, on the ED, PID, UFD proofs. So that becomes very important. In that sense, modern is slightly different from the rest of the topics, which can be more application oriented, while this is more theorem oriented. I also want to touch upon physics topics, which are a little bit uncertain. The paper 1 topics are still on the easier side and should be solvable with the basic IMS notes itself. Again, focus on getting the concepts right, focus on understanding right, and with this very small set of concepts, you can solve most of the problems. You can solve most problems based on the force, torque balancing, conservation of momentum, angular momentum, etc. So paper 1 is relatively easy in this regard. Even this year, there was that one question on the trolley movement, which looks quite difficult, but it's actually just the application of torque and force movements on the right body. Apart from that, in paper 2 physics, there's a lot of small topics that need to be covered. For example, Hamiltonian, Lagrangian, etc. So I looked them up. I found online materials, very small PDFs that help me understand and visualize these things far better. Again, I've shared them on my Telegram channel. I'll put a link for it here. For fluid, again, like I said before, I created a set of 10 to 11 formulae that I basically memorized. That's enough to get all the 10 markers right. All of this is available on my Telegram channel, this material. It's at Utkarsh K5 _ 55. My test copies etc. are also there. You can look them up for more understanding. I also want to touch upon scaling factor. It's something that many candidates are scared of. There are rumors that it makes maths not a good option. While it is true that scaling happens in maths, and in my personal experience it was higher in this year, this split was basically 153 and 169. Here my correct attempt was 240, here my correct attempt was 200 approx. So as you can see, this was scaled quite heavily, at least based on my experience. However, what is just as true is that maths scores very high after the scaling. Even this year there are 5 to 6 candidates who have crossed 300 in maths, which is quite a rarity in other optionals. So even as the scaling is a reality, we can still beat scaling, we can still do very well, and that's something that should be our target. Our target should be to get the correct attempts right, target 400, 450. if you're confident, even 500. That's what I targeted, and eventually I got a correct attempt of 440. That's what helped me get such a good final score. So that is all from my side, I believe. If there are any more questions, reach out on channels, reach out to teachers and so on. All the best. It's a very good optional, and I hope you'll take full advantage of it. Thank you.